It's like we're all in a cult. Idiot, 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 idiot. Hi, everybody. Trigger warning. In my 3 decades as a professor and clinical psychologist, I've learned nothing. Why? Because I'm Jordan Peterson. Let's say you have a non-standard gender identity. Hey, what the hell are other people supposed to do about that? Like, what are the rules here, right? Because if you're a woman, I kind of know how to treat you. But if I don't know whether you're male or female, what the hell should I do with you? You can ask me a question about anything you want.
How does morality go from...
That's a stupid question. You're stupid. Can I get you to stand up, turn around? Okay, so... Okay. God is dead, and I'm gay.
Believe it or not, that's not actually Jordan Peterson. That is the legendary Victoria drag king, Eddi Licious, who, if you watched episode 3, we've already met them once at the Victoria Event Centre with Jimbo. I'm very intrigued by drag kings and how one can play with masculine gender roles as well as feminine, and I really like what Eddi does. Now let's meet our guest properly.
Hey, buddy.
Well, hello there.
Fancy meeting you here.
I know, what a crazy coincidence.
What a beautiful day to talk drag in Victoria, hey?
What a beautiful Victoria to talk drag in today. So, this is a special place to you.
It really is, yeah. And it seems kind of weird. The Inner Harbor, drag king. I can explain a little bit about that. Before I started drag in 2005, I was actually a belly dancer in my previous life. Yeah, so I grew up in Sydney in a really small town, and I was going through a really hard time, going down a pretty bad path. Don't need to give details, but like being a young queer in a tiny town, not, bad things were happening. So I found these belly dance classes and just found this community in these women, this mentorship that I had really been missing in my life. I was feeling really adrift. And aside from that, my dad also happened to be a pretty famous drummer in his younger years. Wayne Wilson, he was a member of Downchild Blues Band, who were pretty big in Toronto in the 70s. So he, in his older years, got into playing hand drums, bongos, doumbek, djembe, tabla, stuff like that. And he played for fun and entertainment, like pretty much up until the day he died. So it was a really cool thing. I was like learning this belly dance stuff. He was getting into hand drums, and we would come down here and busk together. Like every weekend in the summertime, sometimes during the week. So it was kind of my first summer job and my first experience performing for the public. It's a cool memory for me because just like before I, went the opposite way, I got the experience of performing, femininity to its extreme, which as a two-spirit person is kind of just like, I don't know, it feels meaningful for me that way. And we would perform right on the spot. Me in my belly dance costume. You can imagine I had the weirdest tan lines all summer. His partner played accordion. We had like a little group going. There was all kinds of performers and stuff back in the day. This was 2002, 2003. And it was just like this really cool, beautiful community kind of artist experience that I am so lucky to have had, because as you see now, there's not much happening here.
Yeah, no, it's very quiet.
Yeah.
Good for the podcast. Bad for
yeah. Good for sound design. Kind of boring, but hey, we're spicing it up, Yeah.
And this led you to wanting eventually to explore masculinity rather than femininity.
Yeah. Like when I was from when I was very young, I was always playing with gender. I, did like talent shows as a boy sometimes. I didn't really know what drag was, but my gender was always just sort of something I put on to me. So I was kind of just trying it all out. And belly dance was just such a cool, like extra hyper feminine way of being a woman that I was just really attracted to it. And then later started to feel like I want to kind of explore something else. And then, went hyper masculine. And then in the middle, and now I'm kind of, whatever this is today. That can be how drag is, it can be how performance art is, if you're a queer person or if you're even interested in gender. So, yep, all started right here.
I do want to already point out we both have quite spectacular mustaches going on.
Yours is
so
looking fine.
we have that in common.
Yeah, you're looking great.
All right, well, let's head to the pedicab.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm excited. Yeah, let's do it. I haven't ridden one of these in a long time.
Let's do this.
Pre-motorized vehicle days. Let's go.
So we've got all kinds of activities planned for today, including dodging traffic, remembering to turn off our turn signals, and what do we have in mind for today, Eddie?
I've had a lot of help along the way in my drag journey, and a lot has changed from 2005 when I started until now.
I bet.
So yeah, let's just chat about, I guess, the developing kind of queer scene here. Victoria is like the queer capital of North America.
I mean, I kind of got that feeling.
Yeah, it's like the safest place for queer and trans people. It has the largest number of gender diverse people in the country in one place, per capita at least. It's a very, very gay city. It's also a very big art city. So when you kind of mix those two things together, a lot of magic can happen. And a lot's changed, but.
I had a friend visiting from Australia quite recently, and they were like, oh, you said it's a very queer city, so like there's all kinds of like gay bars and, there's a huge scene. And I was like, well, it's more just like everywhere you go, the cafes, the restaurants, the libraries, you're walking on the street, the people you meet,
Yeah.
it's just there's queerness everywhere.
That's very the vibe nowadays. Like I would say that I still do perform in a ton of venues here, but there's only really 2 designated gay bars.
Yeah.
However, it's not necessarily bad since everything is so welcoming to such a diverse group of people.
Yeah, you just end up doing a lot of shows at community centers and
Yeah.
right? People's houses.
People's houses, yeah.
Yeah.
Other bars,
Do you think that's like how it's going to stay that way, or do you think there are more venues in the future like there used to be?
Well, it's kind of an interesting time because, queerness and gay people have kind of been, historically oppressed, hid underground. And we're in this time where there is a lot of political back and forth about, you people are bad still. It's kind of, there's a resurgence of that. But also there's a little bit more mainstream kind of acceptance of it. So it's hard to say where it's going to go.
I was just at Vancouver Pride, and I did something I'd never done before, which was dress in female drag, which was a huge bucket list thing for me, something I'd always wanted to try to do.
How did you feel?
I mean, I felt great. It was fantastic experience. People gave me so much positive feedback, and Vancouver Pride is huge. But I can laugh about this because I don't usually have to deal with it, but I had some person yell at me, "You're an abomination," which I was like, oh, hey, first hate crime ever, if this particular type, right? I was like, oh my God, I've done it, I've made it.
Thank you, next.
Just in case I had any doubts about that is still something that is a challenge that people have to deal with. And I know that you've had to deal with a lot of that too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been very, very visible and very loud about who I am from a young age. So I've had my fair share of haters, but hey, I'm still here. So I've had both good and bad experiences here, definitely, just out and about in drag or as a visibly queer person. But yeah, it's always kind of intimidating, when somebody goes, hey, like the other day when I was walking down the street, this group of kids, hey, and I kind of jumped, got a little fight or flight in me. And then I looked and I said, yes, hello. And they said, I like your mustache. I'm like,
love that.
Thank you.
The kids,
okay.
Kids are usually
the kids
not
are
the
all
problem.
right.
I do think we are also politically going through an interesting moment, not necessarily in a good way, just because there is like this rise of extremely intolerant right-wing views and all this hate toward drag queens. I don't know how much of that is also directed toward drag kings, but I suppose...
I mean, we're kind of a little bit ignored, but a lot of people have come at me called me a drag queen and put me in the same category because they just don't understand. Like
Right.
they do not know what they're talking about and they do not understand what drag is. So it's just a whole made up thing that's quite nonsensical at this point.
They're just like, oh, that looks fabulous.
Yeah, that looks kind of gay in some way. It's bad for kids somehow. Okay. Like, meanwhile, me, knowing I was a little queer from when I was 12, I'm like, that would have been nice if I had some representation. I wouldn't have to be like this now,
I've often thought about this because one of my my sister's kids used to be one of my nephews, is also non-binary and has had the opportunity to sort of come out in that way, which me as an older person observing that, I'm like, if it was the discourse was what it is now, I probably would have done the same. At that time, the idea of being non-binary was not even a topic. I had hair down to my butt at that time, and I would dress in very gender-neutral clothing. A lot of button-up shirts that were very, very colorful and I would say now fabulous.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was like no political movement, no culture I was thinking I was going to belong in. But at the time, I mean, I would go to the bathroom and people would say, hey, this is the men's room. I'd be like, okay, well, I wasn't saying that I'm a woman. I don't know what I'm saying. Am I saying something?
You're an unintentional trailblazer. That's what you are. You
Yeah.
know? Like, we're just putting a label to something that's always been here. You know, queer people have existed since time immemorial. As a two-spirit person, it's like so super clear to me that the hatred and the resistance to alternate forms of gender expression is such a Christian thing. It's a Catholic thing. It's a colonizer thing, you know? It's not how humans actually are. It's part of a patriarchal system. So I think it's so cool. Like, and it's just queerness is infused in, you know, theater and in drag. So I'm stoked we're gonna talk to Sean for a bit, because he actually had a really huge part in my journey. And no, like, he does do drag now, but when I first met him, he was just a theater, just a theater director. He's like a fantastic CEO of Intrepid Theater.
Right, and we're gonna meet him in a second.
We're gonna meet him, and he's gonna talk about how he's so awesome. I love that guy. Just really cares about live theater, which is, you know, kind of a dying art these days, in favor of the TikTok. But we need that. We need to be present with each other in real time, in spaces. The hatred and the isolation and the individualistic mentality lately is so much to do with, what happened to us during COVID, but also like the technology. Like, all the hate is online. I mean, stuff happens in real life, obviously, but you know, you go out there, people are good. We need to like have these theater spaces to remember that we're good. Humans are good. We can, you know, we can do better.
The algorithms actively make us more radical because they show us the things that are designed to make us angrier, and we make caricatures of each other in a way that just isn't going to happen if you're sitting across from each other at a table.
Exactly. Like, let's have a conversation, you know, not throwing back and forth of insults behind a screen. Like, come on, grow up.
When we were talking about doing this episode, one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised by at first, I'm not going to lie, when you talked about like what masculinity means to you, like that is so far removed from what one might think a drag king would think about masculinity. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you know what I mean? That like masculinity can be all kinds of different things.
I know there are a lot of drag kings that kind of like clown about the toxic masculinity culture and really try to like personify that, and I think that's great. Like, I think drag can do a really good thing in like pointing out our kind of like ew, like weird little things and sort of like laughing about it to heal a little bit, or to, you know, go, oh, maybe we should look at that. So I love kings that do that. I think it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's those of us, yeah, that really take it and kind of internalize it and go like, God, what is being a man? Like, what is that? What is masculinity? Like, when I was, you know, I was raised by somebody who was so not stereotypically masculine, but he was all man, you know, he was a male person. Like, we out here.
It's funny though, I have become a person with like this handlebar mustache and a mullet, and you know, I really play on masculinity right now. But for me, it was also not possible to do that until I was able to, through discourse of today, in a way sort of disown masculinity. And this is maybe something kind of insidious about the discourse. I always thought, well, as a bisexual, am I queer enough to have a place in queer discourse? And for a long time, I thought the answer to that question was no. But as the discourse was opening up to kind of allow to make more space for many different ways to be queer, it gave me the space to also embrace non-binariness, and in that way disown masculinity, and having done that, be able to feel free to express masculinity while perceiving it as drag.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's very freeing. Exactly. Yeah. You go, what is this thing? What is it? And then you exaggerate it and you go, oh, okay. I'm okay with that. Or I'm not okay with that. And I'm going to change, you know? It's all just playing. with we're like video game characters. We might as well customize ourselves how we
exactly.
want, you know?
We're playing, yeah, it's all cosplay. It's all drag.
They're going.
Oh, whoopsie. Got lost in
No, it's
the
tricky.
conversation.
There's lots of stuff, lots of moving parts.
Sometimes we move forward at different paces.
It's a journey, baby. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it. Fiskard Street.
You know, you think of like a person with a mustache and a mullet, you might think of sort of
That like Joe Dirt kind of thing.
yeah,
Like,
like that. Doing that as a presentation, but not as a person. Just in a way sort of mixes that up.
Yeah.
Plays with that. So that people also have to kind of rethink their expectations.
Yes.
Which I think, I mean, is that maybe also a thing that you're doing?
That super resonates with me, absolutely. Like in so many different ways, because like I'm a white passing Métis person. So my family, a lot of my family's Indigenous. All of us are Métis. And yeah, as somebody who has white privilege in the world, that's something that I think about a lot when I'm dressing as a male, as a guy. Because I'm like, hey, and I kind of put on that like, I'm that white privileged kind of guy, but I can laugh about it because it's all just like, it's so arbitrary and so stupid. Like we're so oppressed over something that somebody made up, you know? So like, let's laugh about it and like, let's perform it and like find some joy in this crazy system we've built to restrict ourselves, you know? We don't have to. There's spaces that we don't have to do that. Yeah, it's very interesting how much stuff's opened up and then at the same time, certain parts are just clinging to that tradition. A lot of tension, a lot of disagreements, but more opinions than ever and more voices and more representation than ever. So it's actually just really exciting.
Every idea of a norm is breaking down.
Totally.
Which is wonderful when it is, when it's not terrible.
I know. That's why we need the art to escape for a second too, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So before I met you, I had heard your name like hundreds of times.
Oh, really?
Well, because you're performing absolutely everywhere.
Since 2005, baby. I mean, I went to Montreal for 4 years, but then I came back. I'm the cockroach of Victoria. I was here first. I'll be here after everybody's gone. One of my many taglines. It's made me a little bit of a weirdo. And, you know, has led to me meeting like a lot of really influential people. One of whom we are about to meet. So I'm super excited to introduce you.
So here we are, we're at the Intrepid, and here's the person in question peering out from behind the...
Hi! Come on in.
Yes, let's do this. Actually, I'm pretty sure the first time I ever saw you was here in the space, Eddi. Can that be?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sean actually really encouraged me to delve into kind of the more theatery side of things, although I was a drag king.
You also do perform in drag.
I do, yeah.
I've seen you.
Yes. It's the bearded Queen Wolfie is here.
Would you say Eddi sort of inspired you to also pursue drag? Because you weren't doing that before.
Yeah, I mean, when you see people who are this incredible and creative, you are like, of course, inspired. But also, I feel like we kind of push each other to do new things. And sometimes it's fun, silly drag duets, and sometimes it's, you know, being like, hey, Eddi, I really think you should host this thing. And you're like, no, I don't think I'm a great host. I was like, well, let's try. Like, let's work together. Let's do things. Like, I kind of feel like I push you a little bit.
You do. You're like my ultimate stage mama. I really love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It just really changed my perspective of what I was doing, because I was always like, oh, am I an actor? Am I a dancer? Am I a drag? I'm like, I'm a performer.
That's what I'm so excited about and what I'm drawn to is really kind of, I don't know, this like multi-hyphenate genres or performers who have multiple things that they do, and what happens when those pieces start to come together. Like what happens if there's an opera singer who's also a drag queen? What happens when there's a drag king who also is an incredible projection designer? Like what happens when those pieces come together? And that's, I think, what's really exciting to me about what Intrepid does and what you do. But I also am really excited about what happens when there's a queer takeover in a straight space. Like, we do these shows at Phillips Brewery in the tasting room. We do these shows with Vivian Vanderpuss. We call them Drag Queers and Beers. And it's a one-night pop-up. So we're kind of doing like a queer takeover of this brewery for one night. And they are one of my favorite nights of the year.
The audience is living for it. And it's like, you know, craft beer bros and like their girlfriends. And then like just like a variety of people too. We're always like, where are you guys coming from? We like forget there's straight people in town.
Well, we also go out and we're like, we know 5 people here out of this 100 people in this room.
They're loving it. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, bring it to the streets. Yeah,
But I think that's important, and I think that's what theater can do too, is it can bring people in who maybe love theater or love performance, really expose them to new ideas, expose them to new ways of thinking. I'm thinking specifically about shows where, you're seeing trans identities on stage, and maybe it's the first time you're seeing someone who's trans. Or you're seeing a drag king on stage, and maybe you've only ever seen drag queens. Like, I think there's such power in what happens when audiences and art meet, and when your audiences are introduced to something new. Eddi, you've changed the scene in Victoria by being a drag king here for over a decade, and people now respect that, I think, and you've been a trailblazer in that. And I think there's something to be said about the rise of drag, and whether that's thanks to RuPaul or not, maybe it is. But I think also we talked about during the pandemic, and venues couldn't necessarily be open, big theaters, but we could do shows in restaurants and in lounges and in pop-up spaces or outdoors. So kind of drag, for me, I feel like it kind of thrived in those challenges. And really we couldn't do shows in the theater, but I could still do a drag show at night. So I feel like a lot of people were introduced to drag for the first time because it was what was happening.
Yeah, queers are resilient. Like, we'll find a way, man. Queerness is infused in theater, like through the ages, but so many of us have like had to hide who we are, like within it, and sort of just be exploited without being able to be seen. So I've just got getting goosebumps thinking again about like how like it's meta that you're doing a queer theater festival, because like how queer is theater anyway? But like it's freaking beautiful because so many of us just want to be seen for who we are. I mean, that's my big issue, I guess. It keeps coming.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have conversations with people saying, well, why do you need a queer theater festival? And it's kind of like, well, yes, queer theater should be everywhere. It should be in every festival, and it's kind of not. So we need to make a dedicated place for this to happen, for this work to happen, for this art to thrive, and for artists to be supported in a really safe and grounded way. The questions I'm being asked when I do interviews like this or when I talk to the media has shifted. It's become a lot about, what about protests? What about drag story time being canceled? What about the rising hatred for the queer community and for drag queens and for queer artists and for trans folks? That's why this work and these festivals and artists like Eddi are so important, because we need these things to happen as queer people. We need to come together because we're greater in numbers, and we need to be celebrated, and we need to sometimes just take a step back and just enjoy and not always have to be on the front lines.
I feel like we probably have a lot in common.
I think we might. Are we twinning right now? If you ever want to do drag, hey, hit me up.
The answer is yes.
Rock on. And like how Sean as Woofy is a bearded queen.
Right?
Like, there's all kinds of different ways. I love a mustache drag moment, obviously, but if you got a real one, you might as well flaunt it. Now, I'm not a drag dad by any means. I don't have any drag kids. I'm kind of like more like the creepy uncle, or like the funny uncle. So like I'm there for you, but I'm like, oh, don't follow me, I'm lost too, friend.
100%.
Yeah.
I know that there are certainly like cis women who drag queens, so I know that it is possible to drag the gender that you are, also the sex.
Oh yeah, it's so valid to do that. I mean, I do a queen persona.
Yeah.
And she is very different than Eddi Licious. Like, there's just certain things that I can't express as my male persona because that's not my masculinity to me.
Right.
So my femme persona is a lot more hardcore. She's a lot more female rage kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't want to perform in that way as my male persona just because I want to protect that. I want to keep that for the nurturing, for the funny, for the silly, for the divine masculine versus the toxic masculine. And with my female persona, I'm not being toxically feminine, but I am angry a lot of the time, about what being a woman in the world means, or, celebrating what being a woman in the world means, but in a sort of aggressive and empowering way, more so than the stereotypically like soft feminine. So there's ways to be masculine in a feminine way and feminine in a masculine way, and they're not the same, and I can't explain the difference, but when you know,
Yeah. Totally.
It just is. That's why we've got to just try it on and just feel it out. Because like our society is so focused on gender, and they're like, oh, why are trans people so obsessed with gender? It's like, you guys did this to us. I was being sexualized as a 12-year-old for being androgynous, People were asking what was in my pants at 12 years old. When I was outed as a lesbian, I had parents saying slurs to me. Yes. I'd never even kissed anybody or held hands yet. Like, it's not us who's the problem.
No.
All of our experience is gendered. It's baked into our society. We're indoctrinated to fit. You're born under the sign of the penis or the vagina, and you must act accordingly, And Like, that's not actually how humans work. It's not even how biology works. Like, most of my friends don't want to put on makeup and spend a ton of time straightening their hair and stuff, but they'll do it to go to work because that's what's expected. And it's like, what? Being pretty is more professional than not wearing makeup? Like, okay. Or look at the Olympic uniforms, like the volleyball players, the guys versus girls.
Right.
Like the regulations around that's enforced. Like, why? It does not help them perform better.
Are you familiar with trad wife on like
Oh
TikTok?
God, yeah, why is that becoming a thing?
I don't know. I mean, in a weird way, it is. It's like it's very much drag, but it's just like going back to the 1950s drag.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I mean, probably for somebody, it's some kind of empowering.
Maybe some, yeah, sure.
But it's a strange
know.
one.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it either.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, some people genuinely do want to just be taken care of, and if that's like their bliss, like more power to you for sure, you know? And I mean, celebrating women's roles in the home, I think there is value in that. I'm just not sure what the motive is. I can't really speak to it. It's a little it's definitely not something I've spent a lot of time contemplating. Got a little bit of everything going on today. Hey. I don't know what he said. I'm sure it's positive. I'm sure he's saying we're great. We look cute.
Yeah.
All right.
So where to next?
Ooh, okay. Let's go to another weird spot. So it's a liquor store now, but once upon a time, pre-pandemic, it was Logan's Tavern. Logan's Tavern of the Damned. It was, okay, that place is really important to me for two reasons. One, they used to have this open mic night there every Sunday at 4:20. It was called the Hootenanny, run by Carolyn Mark, who's an incredible musician, the Queen of Vancouver Island, they call her. She's like a folk, kind of dark folk country alt singer. So they would have this open mic night there, and I play ukulele because I like to do all of the things all of the time. Everything, good ADHD vibes. But yeah, so I got my start getting over my fear of speaking on a microphone at the Hootenanny. So you basically just sign up on a chalkboard. It's super casual. Nobody listens to you, so you can kind of just experiment and play. People are just sitting there partying, drinking. You're just like, okay, nobody's paying attention, and it's kind of great. Like it was low pressure, low stress. The people there were so encouraging. And yeah, it was just such a cool community space. And sucks it shut down during the pandemic. Everybody was really devastated because it was like this hotbed of creativity, and it had two rooms. So like the front part was the Hootenanny room, and then in the back they had this kind of more stagey with lights and fog machines and stuff where they do punk shows, bands and stuff, and also where we created something called the House of Occults. So that was sort of born. It wasn't necessarily born at Logan's, but it's where we really found like the vibe there.
Okay, and here's the liquor store.
Here's the liquor store that was once Logan's Tavern, and here's Henrietta Dubet. Oh my God.
Hey,
Hello.
Fancy
so want to talk
meeting
about
her.
drag queens? Hi.
Hi.
Yay! Johnny, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Henrietta.
Yeah, so Henny was one of the original members of House of Occult.
We were the first drag residency in the city. It was the first time we had regular drag shows happening. It was every 2 weeks here at Logan's Pub. We had community shows, so it was the first spotlight that people could kind of start out drag, which was really nice. We called it Community Garden for growing the little seedlings.
And so much experimental stuff. I feel like drag was in a really cool place around then. We were all kind of like monsters and like clowns and anything but what you see on TV these days. It was just
Yeah, we really fostered a space for people to experiment and get artsy with it. There was less about looking pretty and being all fabulous and more about getting weird and gross and nasty with it.
Yeah,
And it's such a good venue for it because this was historically very punk. A lot of punk and metal shows happening here as well.
yeah. Oddly felt very safe being a queer person here.
Oh yeah, we were
Like-
very well looked after.
Yeah, we really were. Yeah, I miss it so much.
Stupid pandemic.
I know. However, some good things came out of the panini. We did get the Vicious Poodle out of that.
We did, yeah. The Vicious Poodle was slated to open early 2020, and then the pandemic kind of stopped it in its tracks. But then we ended up opening it up at mid-June 2020.
We just did what we worked with what we could.
Yeah, with the restrictions popping up, we had to alter the way shows looked each time, whether it was performing through masks or whether it was they put the plexiglass around the stage as well, which kind of felt like being in drag queen purgatory.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't see the crowd. All you could see was, because the lights were on you, you could just see a reflection of yourself. Which you'd think a drag queen would be really into that, but it actually ends up being
Unsettling. I
Yeah.
hated that.
kind of eerie.
But now you got a gig there tonight, right?
Absolutely, drag bingo every Wednesday at the Vicious Poodle.
Well, good thing we can get you there in time.
You said that House of Occult was like the birth of like this very genderqueer drag. That means before then it wasn't so
Yeah, it
much
was
like
pretty. It was very much like classic. Everyone trying to be like a drag race queen at the time. We didn't see too many kings. In those days, drag shows only happened once every 6 to 8 weeks as well. It wasn't every 2 to 3 days like it is now. We're very blessed. You had a long time to prepare for everything, which was nice, but it was also a little bit of a scramble over other people and other bodies to get opportunities and spotlights.
Dun, dun, dun,
Now
dun.
we're going to go by a random heavy metal show in Centennial Square.
Whoa!
The
Maybe-
arts are alive.
What is going on here?
It's different genres of metal as well, I was told.
Yep, that's Victoria. We'll just leave this here. Nobody will steal it. Victoria's safe. To the poodle.
To the vicious poodle.
Mommy's home.
Here we are. So these were taken, when were these taken? 2020?
These were taken early 2020. It would have been before the world collapsed.
Literally, yeah.
You can see that I'm a little aesthetically different these days as well.
We're a little different. I do this sometimes, but I stopped because everybody keeps going, why do you have Kid Rock on the wall? They're like, all these beautiful drag queens and Kid Rock? I don't get it. So I had to, I don't know, put on something more
Little glitz and
gay
glam.
looking. Slay.
You've described this kind of as almost a home away from home sort of vibe, right?
Yeah.
Like a community center for.
It really is, because
Yeah.
the owner, you know, we knew, both of us knew the owner before he'd opened it, and he'd run gay bars in New York, and was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I want to do this right. I want to do it like I want to see a bar that I would go to.
Right.
So we were like, hell yeah. And then he's like, will you guys be on the wall? And we're like, absolutely. Like, come on. Everybody's friends, and it feels like it's just,
Family.
again, chosen family.
There's lots of trans folks in the kitchen as well.
And there's just, not a lot of spaces that are dedicated, like we were talking about with Sean. We go and take over spaces to perform in, but it's cool to like be able to come home to something like this where it's the default, not the exception.
Right.
And we're not like a special night.
Well, thank you for taking us
Plus,
here.
please stay hydrated, eat some fruit, and don't run over any children.
Aw, but that's my
Love
favorite part.
Love you.
Bye.
Come to bingo
Mwah.
sometime.
Break a heel, babe. See you later.
Mwah.
How can we possibly top that? Where's your next?
I'm going to be taking you somewhere to meet some of my family members, in a sense, I suppose.
Now you wear your Métis identity with pride as well. How does that play into your character as
Yeah.
a drag king?
I grew up in a Métis family, so Métis people are a separate and distinct culture from First Nations. We're a post-contact Indigenous group of people, and there's been a lot of resurgence of the Métis identity over the years because they were really, really oppressed for a long time. It was really kind of a choice because a lot of us are fair-skinned, white-presenting. Back when colonization was just getting really aggressive and really intense, you kind of had a choice, like abandon your culture and be safe, or embrace your culture and potentially be, sent to boarding schools or taken from your parents. And that kind of, I sit with that a lot as I move through the world as, a cis feminine presenting, white passing, like pretty plain looking, queer, two-spirit person. So drag really gives me the opportunity to let myself be seen. And I feel like I'm doing my ancestors kind of living in a way that they may not have had the opportunity to do. So for people who don't know, two-spirit is just a pan-Indigenous term that means another gender outside of the binary. So each culture in Canada had its own word for these people. But it's really just it's a way that now as queer Indigenous people we can sort of like identify ourselves. Woo.
So sometimes it's a roller coaster.
There's a lot of nuances in it. There's a lot of complexities in it. There's a lot of different cultural teachings depending on what nation you're from. And so much of that has been lost in history because a lot of things were destroyed.
Just a question about two-spirit, because it's something I genuinely don't know. Is it something is that a term queer people are encouraged to use or can use without also being Indigenous, or is that rather?
No, it's only a term for Indigenous people because
Right.
it's a bit of a different. It doesn't quite mean non-binary. It was a social role. So people who existed outside the gender binary as we know it now in pre-colonial Indigenous societies, they had a special role in the community because they were seen as having both the energy of masculine and feminine within in balance. They were tasked as like child caretakers, couples counselors, because they could see many different viewpoints at once, right?
Yeah.
And even they would perform in sacred ceremony to help the deceased loved ones pass to the other world, because they could guide them to the proper place, having both spirits within. So it's a very, it's a ceremonial, it's a very internal kind of thing that each Indigenous person that identifies as Two-Spirit these days has kind of their own way of expressing that and way of being with that.
Right.
And it's a little separate than the term indigiqueer too. That's a newer term as well.
Indigiqueer?
Yeah, Two-Spirit was coined in the 80s at a Native conference by Elder Myra Laramie. She was from Anishinaabe Nation. It's a way for me to connect, I guess, more culturally with my gender, and kind of heal that part of myself, because I had such a hard time growing up being accepted for that. There was a lot of trauma in my family surrounding that. My uncle was gay. He was a casualty of the AIDS epidemic, and when they started to see that I was also potentially queer, Two-Spirit, it freaked my family out, right? So, yeah. And now here we are.
Where are we?
We are at Ross Bay Cemetery. We're gonna meet some of my family members.
Oh, now I get it.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. So, I'm just trying to spot my grandma's grave. It's really big. Where are you, Bubba? It's one of the newish ones.
Bubba?
Oh yeah, so my uncle, who married into the family, is Ukrainian.
Okay.
And my grandma hated feeling older, so Baba is what people call grandmother in Ukraine. And so she just adopted that. And then everybody called her Baba, like everywhere. When she worked as a secretary when she was older, when she was, just kind of became her like pet name. Oh, come right up here, this big one on the left.
Ah.
Yeah. This is a really kind of weird place, I guess, to bring people for a Drag in the City documentary, but hear me out. So 3 of my family members are actually buried here. This is my grandmother's grave. My aunt is buried here, as well as my uncle, and my dad's ashes are scattered in the water right over there. I firmly believe, and I know this to be true, that, we're a combination of all the people that have impacted us in our lives, as well as our experiences. But I am a mix of all these people. These people are my caretakers, my mentors, my elders, my ancestors, and my family. And I feel like I've lost a little bit of a disproportionate amount of family members for being a younger person. So I really like to use drag to kind of keep their influences living and breathing in my day-to-day life, Like sometimes I'll look in the mirror and see my uncle when I draw my facial hair a certain way. Or I try to embody my dad's kind of like way of being like, masculine, but like fluid in that, because he was so like you said, he had the long hair like you did when you were identifying as non-binary, but he identified as a cis male. Like he was a man, but he was soft but strong. He was nurturing. It was a sort of leadership that isn't really celebrated in men. It's like it was more of a gentle kind of like teaching kind of way versus a do this with force, like stereotypical masculinity, right? I do femme drag too, and sometimes I'll put a beauty mark where my grandmother's was and kind of like say, hey grandma, hey baba, or I'll put a certain shade of lipstick on and be reminded of my aunt. And I just think that, as well as being a silly entertaining performer, that part is infused in all of the performances I do, because I am all of these people. And I find it kind of really comforting that even though they're not breathing in this world today, like I still am. And so their influence, their teachings, they continue,
I love the idea that you are paying tribute to your ancestors, honoring your ancestors through drag.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's a really, drag can be a lot more spiritual than a lot of people think. We see the mainstream stuff a lot of times, the splits, the death drops, all that is super cool and has its cultural significance for sure. But I think for me, maybe being an Indigenous drag performer, and a Two-Spirit person, I really see it a lot as like just honoring my gender, my family, my culture, and just telling stories. Like I take influences from my dad's jokes all the time. Those are still, alive in the world. My grandma's sense of humor is in me. My aunt's kind of like this like silly but intense way of being. My uncle's really out there, theatrical, dress-up kind of thing. He would have loved, to see me do drag. It's, and I think in a way they kind of do, because, they're in me, That sounds super woo-woo, but you know, like
It's not
it is what it is.
I think a lot of geneticists would agree completely. So is that so woo? I'm not sure that it is.
Depends if you believe in that, you know, the great unknown. But I mean, like we're obviously a part of something so much greater than ourselves, and we don't even know the half of it. Our brains can't comprehend that. So keeping that alive through performance just makes me feel connected to the people that I can't just call on the phone anymore, you know.
I spend a lot of time also thinking about like family, but I usually think about it from a cautionary tale sort of sense, in the sense of like, okay, well, I know that these ancestors were like this, and and I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
I encountered it, so you know, and sort of fearing it when I would see it in myself. But of course, that the original thing is also honoring and loving those things and accepting those things.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
merely being terrified of them.
Just pushing them down and turning away from it. I mean, there's certain aspects you absolutely want to do, but like we're not all good people. But yeah, it's a really important part of my creative practice, I would say. And yeah, I spend a lot of time in here. It's very peaceful, can get my thoughts together. Seems a bit morbid, but it's like a place of rest.
I live not that far from here, so this is I have something going on in my life and I need to reflect on it.
Right.
Place.
Yep.
So I have gone past this grave so many times.
This is my grandma.
It's cool to have some context for this one.
Yeah, so that's her. Yeah, and she was a really powerful lady. She taught me a lot about resilience, a lot about overcoming challenges. She was very traumatized by her upbringing and spent a lot of her younger years in a convent, had a lot of trauma from that, and came through it just to be this like fierce, like distilled, powerful force of a woman by the time I came along. So my upbringing was really cool. I had this like really powerful grandmother, kind of matriarch. My family's like very matriarchal, very female heavy. A really like feminist kind of father, and an amazing mother who is still alive, by the way. She just is too shy to be on camera.
Okay.
But yeah, and her quiet leadership still, you know, gives me a lot of strength to this day, you know. And you know, my dad didn't, he not only influenced my natural creativity and like did like the belly dance and the drum thing with me, but when I started doing drag, he was all for it. He was like, hey, yeah, brother. Like he just like was you're just so open-minded to it. And I don't think everybody's that lucky. So yeah, I just really wanted to bring you here to show you like, it's a lifelong journey for me, for sure.
There's a quote on the grave for Baba. I have known love in all its radiant splendor, as shown upon my pathway to the end.
Yes.
What's that about?
By the time in her older years, she was just living for the party, you know? Like she got sober before I was born. She was an alcoholic when she was younger from all the trauma and stuff. But even after she came back from that, she was just the life of the party all the time, like dancing at the potlucks, like jigging with people, making dirty jokes, flirting with everybody. She traveled all over the world. She lived another life after quite a hard beginning. And it's true. She has known love in all its radiant splendor.
2016, not that long ago.
Nope. Yeah, I miss her. But I am grateful that, you know, I got to learn from her for the time I had her, and that she really got a kick out of me dancing and stuff. And I know she's, you know, on some level with me still, whatever that means. We don't know, but
Maybe multiple levels.
hey.
So we've got your grandma here. You said there were other family members?
Yeah, my Uncle Tom is just behind there, and then my Aunt Kit is also buried in that same plot.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2-for-1 deal in that one. Yeah, my Uncle Tom passed away when I was just 2 years old, so I didn't get to know him. But he was the gay uncle, the secret gay uncle. And when I was first coming to discover that I wasn't, you know, maybe heterosexual or binary or whatever any of that meant when I was very, very young, we'll say, oh God, it was probably 14 or 15, my family started being like, what's up with you? You're not really being traditional. What's happening here? And it scared the heck out of them. It really terrified them, and they ostracized me. My mom and dad were very protective, but there was talk of sending me, you know, like to counseling to get that fixed, to fix it, you know. And it was out of fear, and it took me a lot of years to discover that. I was told as a child that he passed away from cancer, just general cancer, as a young adult. So I never questioned that. But it was, quite a number of years later when I was an adult that I learned that it was actually, he was a casualty of the AIDS epidemic. So me being so young and coming out with being like, this is who I am, and having my family, you know, go from having me be one of the pack to just this little freak in quarantine really did a lot of damage to me. It really put a rift between my mom and some of my other family members for a while. And over the years, that's healed because they, you know, I realized at a certain point that they were not mad at me. They didn't think I was evil. They were just really afraid for me because they thought the same thing would happen. It was just trauma. So yeah, me existing still and doing the work that I'm doing with educating and with performing and stuff, I think that's helped them heal a little bit from all that initial shock. Seeing my family come to terms with the fact that, oh, actually queer people aren't, you know, all doomed.
Right.
You know, it's not as dangerous as it once was.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's also brought me a lot of peace and a lot of reconciliation because, yeah, it was hard for a lot of years there to feel like I was the odd one out.
Now you're the queer one out.
Now I'm the queer one. And there's other they're coming out in the younger generation. No, I don't want to say that. I don't know. We're out here.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for taking me there.
Yeah, thanks for coming here and being open-minded. I know it's like an interesting slant to this whole thing, but it's not all dive bars and drag race, you know? It's just not. It's
Definitely not.
That's the facts. Yeah. Okay? I'm almost 17 years in the game. It's ever evolving. Yeah. As we all are.
I had a lot of ideas for this show, but I just want to say this is like so cool, everything you're sharing, also about ancestors. I wish we could bring our ancestors into more topics. I wish we did. I feel like in these days we often just kind of forget the ancestors, but they're very important.
Got to remember where you came from. It helps make a lot more sense out of your life now.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to take you back to town. Where to next?
Ooh, let's go for a drink somewhere.
Ooh, the Poodle?
Oh, mayhaps. My home bar. Yeah, why not? Let's do it.